Title: I said yes when my son woke me up that night, family drama story. In the peaceful suburbs of Denver, Colorado, lived a woman named Laura Mitchell, a 40-year-old elementary school teacher who had built her life around her only son, Ethan. Since the tragic passing of her husband 8 years earlier in a car accident, Laura had devoted herself fully to Ethan's upbringing. She made sure he had a safe home, a good education, and all the love she could give. Ethan, now 17, was a bright and sensitive teenager who loved playing guitar, reading history, and spending time outdoors. To the outside world, the Mitchells were just another mother and son, but to Laura, Ethan was her whole world. Life had been moving in its usual rhythm until one chilly autumn night when Ethan suddenly woke her up. It was past midnight when Laura heard a knock on her bedroom door. Startled, she called out softly, asking if everything was all right. Ethan entered with a worried expression and sat at the edge of her bed. He explained that he had a nightmare that felt too real, one where he saw his father's accident replaying in his mind, and he felt as though he was losing both of his parents. Laura, her heart aching, pulled him into a comforting embrace and assured him that he was safe. Ethan admitted that sometimes the weight of not having a father was too much to handle, and he didn't know who to turn to accept her. Laura, hearing his trembling voice, said yes without hesitation when he asked if he could stay in her room that night just so he wouldn't feel alone. That simple yes marked a turning point, not because anything unusual happened, but because it opened a door to conversations they had both avoided for years. As Ethan lay beside her, they began to talk about the things they had buried deep down. About his father, about how life had changed after the accident, and about the fear of losing each other. Laura realized that for all her efforts to protect him, she had never truly acknowledged how much Ethan had been carrying on his own. He confessed that sometimes he felt guilty for being alive when his father wasn't, as though he needed to somehow make up for the absence. Laura, tears in her eyes, told him he was never meant to replace anyone, and that his existence was the reason she had been able to survive the loss. That night, instead of silence and loneliness, there was connection, honesty, and healing. In the days that followed, the closeness that began that night grew stronger. Ethan started sharing more with Laura, about the pressures of school, the challenges of friendships, and his worries about the future. Laura listened with patience and offered guidance, but more importantly, she gave him the space to speak freely without judgment. Their bond shifted from simply mother and son to something even deeper, a partnership in navigating life's challenges together. However, this closeness also brought new difficulties. At school, Ethan's teachers noticed that while he was intelligent, his focus seemed to drift, and he appeared distracted. Laura was called in for a parent-teacher conference, where she learned that Ethan had been carrying anxiety and unresolved grief that was affecting his studies. She realized that while their late-night talks had opened doors, he still needed more support than she alone could give. She decided to take him to counseling, a step that Ethan initially resisted, feeling like it made him weak. But with her encouragement, he agreed, and soon it became another positive turning point. Counseling gave Ethan the tools to process his emotions, and it gave Laura the reassurance that she was not alone in helping her son heal. During this time, their nightly conversations continued, sometimes light-hearted and sometimes heavy. They would sit together, Ethan strumming his guitar while Laura graded papers, sharing quiet company. On weekends, they began to take walks in the park, something they hadn't done in years. Slowly but surely, the walls built by grief began to crumble. One evening, Laura received a heartfelt letter from Ethan, thanking her for always saying yes when he needed her most, whether it was to stay up late listening to him, helping him with school projects, or simply being present. He wrote that while he missed his father, he had come to realize that his mother's strength had been his anchor. Laura, overwhelmed, tucked the letter away in a journal, knowing she would treasure it for the rest of her life. Over time, Daniel's absence no longer defined their home. Instead, resilience, love, and understanding filled the space. Ethan grew more confident, excelling in school once again, and even performing at a school talent show with his guitar. Laura, watching from the audience, felt immense pride, not only for his talent but for the journey they had taken together. That one night when Ethan had woken her up had seemed so small at the time, just a mother's instinct to comfort her son, but it became the moment that reshaped their relationship forever. It reminded Laura that sometimes the most important choices are the quiet ones, the ones where you say yes to simply being present. And though life would continue to bring challenges, they both knew that together, they could face anything.